Hello everyone, this is Sam and today's video is gonna be all about data gathering and researching containers, making it very easy for you to understand and show you in just 4 steps how you can build your own data gathering spreadsheet. The first step is very simple. You're gonna need to select a container to research data for. In my case, I selected these superior ingredients pouches. Then you're gonna be right-clicking to preview it. This is the first step of the research. By doing so, you can see what can drop from these pouches, and you also see in which categories they are listed, the common and the uncommon. Some containers go all the way to rare and ultra rare. Naturally, this is mostly for containers that have very high-end stuff like infusions, very rare materials, very expensive weapons, and so on and so forth. Here we have 5 drops in the common category, 3 in the uncommon one, and that is pretty much it for the first level of our research. Next, we're gonna head on over to the Guild Wars 2 wiki to do the second step of the research. We now find ourselves on the Guild Wars 2 wiki. The first thing we will do is look for the name of our container, and here we can find the superior ingredients pouch, which is the one we're working with. As you can see from the Blackline delivery box, we do have a chance of it dropping. Here you have a list of the materials that it can drop. And you also have some drop rate research, which is precisely what we're going to be doing. What's interesting for us is looking at the contents and then building a sheet that's going to allow us to work with that. So then the next step, naturally, will be to head on over to Excel. What we have here is a blank sheet. The only thing that I have done is renaming the first sheet into research, because this is where we're gonna be building our spreadsheet. So if we want to work very simply with our sheet, the first thing we were gonna do is put down the name of what drops. So this is our first column. Then we can either get the names from the wiki or get them directly from our import by searching them in the import. For the import, we're going to be working with Data Wars 2, which is an API created by Silverus that serves a lot of purposes, and especially in our case makes it very easy to get price updates. This is the one that most of the other economy people are working with because it has a lot of extensive information on price variations over a few days, few months, etc. That makes it a very good tool. So please get familiar with it. And for today, I'm just gonna paste in one query that I'm gonna work with, and that's gonna be pretty much it. But I will explain how that query works. So you go into the Data tab, Get Data, and you can either do from text and CSV or from web. Both are going to work in our case. So let's go back to the start of this URL and I'm going to explain everything that is put in there. See here, that is the name of the API we're working with, datawars2.ie/guildwars2. That's the one we work with. V1, that's the first version. There are other versions you can use. The version 2 has more information on recipes, if I'm not mistaken. All this information is available on the Data Wars 2 website. Then items is going to be our endpoint. That's what we want to work with in our case. And then I'm going to ask it to be a CSV file. So that's comma separated values, and it's one of the easiest format to import into Excel. Finally, we need to input the fields that we want to work with. Here I want the item ID, the item name, the buy quantity, which is the number of buy orders, the buy price, which is the highest value of the buy orders, then the cell listing quantity, the cell listing lowest price, the type of the item, so it can be cooking ingredients, consumables, armor, gear, whatever, that's where the info will be. Rarity is going to tell us about the in-game rarity. And finally, we have some information on the price history. Over the last 7 days, how many goods sold, what was the average price, and how many were over the last day, what was the average price. And the last information we want is when the price was last updated. This final part at the end, and filter equals nothing, is a way for us to add all of the items, not only the ones that get me traded on the trading post. Now we're gonna hit enter, or OK. As you can see here, this is the most basic format of our import. There is still some stuff that we can work with, and we are actually gonna be doing that, because if you're looking at it, the information is not exactly in the best order for us to work with. We would very much like to have type and rarity before the buy price and quantity, so we're gonna transform data. This opens the Power Query window that you might be a little bit more familiar with, and here you can do a lot of stuff. For example, you can change the type, so that is to say what the cell contain for each of the columns. Here we have numerical values, so that's fine, and we have textual values, so that's fine as well. They decided to go with integer, which is very good for us. As you can see, all of the information is available, and finally we have a date and time, which we're going to keep that way. Type is going to be moved all the way to here. We're going to do the same with rarity. This looks about correct. The next thing we could do is change all the null values to 0. And that would actually be useful for some of our formulas eventually, hence we will do so. This should prove to be good enough. We're now going to close it and load. As you can see, this created a new sheet in your spreadsheet, and we're going to rename it because that's going to be easier for us. It is now called data. We're going to do the same for our query. This now looks so much better. Then the next step is going to be to look for the items that we're going to work with in this list. So if we go back to the wiki page, we have the name of all of our items here. So the parsnip, the leek, the artichoke, and so on. Let's go back to Excel. In order to make it easier for us to see what we're doing, I decided to go and make a selection of just the items that interest us. This is a filter, and it is easy to apply by just looking for the name of the items in the list and adding them to your current filter. Naturally, you don't have to do that. You can also use Ctrl F, look for the items, and then pick up the IDs. This is exactly what we're gonna do now. We have all of our IDs, we're gonna take them and bring them all the way here. We're going to do a paste special as values because we do not want to keep the formatting. Now we need to rename our column. We previously called it drops, but it is much better to go with ID and name. So now that we have our first two columns, which are technically the most important, we are going to want to add the other columns that will contain some information that will be useful to us. Naturally, after ID and name, we would pretty much like to have the price we're going to be working with. So for the price, we will be going with the sell listing, and we will already apply the taxes to it so that you get a clear idea of the money you're gonna get as you sell these. For this, we're gonna use a simple VLOOKUP formula. You take the ID you want to look for. You go into your database for the information you're seeking, and what we want is the sell price over here. It's in column H, which is the 8th one. Using false at the end of our formula allows for an exit match, which is exactly what we want. So this right here is my price in copper. We're gonna add taxes to it. Taxes are 15%, so we go with 0.85. This is not exactly a price that's easy for us to understand, so we're actually gonna apply some conditional formatting to it in order to make it easier for a Guild Wars 2 player to understand how much money we're working with right there. So for conditional formatting, the way it works is you can put into brackets some specific condition you want, and then you add the format you want it. You separate the different conditions with semicolons. So we're gonna drag that all the way down, and there we have our values for each of the items after taxes. So that's already good enough. Then we're gonna start working with the drop rates. So over there, we're gonna want to add an extra line at the top of our table. The reason why we want an extra line is because there is a metric we haven't added so far. And that metric is going to be very important. So next, what we will want over here is to put in the drop rates that we're going to calculate. Then we want to have another metric that is quite important, and that is the drop rate times the price to know what's the real value you're getting. So there, we're going to have value. And finally, we're going to start wanting to have the data gathered. So we're going to put a combined of all the data. And then we're going to have all of our individual data sets. And off we go all the way to set 10. We're going to make our columns the right size. To do that, it's a very simple Excel thing. You select your columns, you double click when your cursor looks like this. That allows you to set the proper column width. So the reason why we added an extra line at the top is because now we will need to make a difference between the datasets we have. So here, Magic Find does not affect the bags, so the only difference in the datasets is going to be how many bags we're opening. So that's exactly what we're going to put on top of there. So see, we put sample size over there, and we're gonna do the first set together so that you know exactly how we are working with the data. in our case right there, the sample size is 58 superior ingredient pouches. We're gonna do one last step before that, and that's seeing that the uncommon one are the butternut, the lemongrass, and the cayenne pepper. As we can see right there, the information we have on the preview part of our pouch with the different separation doesn't exactly match what we found on the wiki earlier. There is an extra ingredient on the wiki list that we otherwise didn't have. So we missed out on the cayenne pepper and we added raspberry. So we're going to be fixing our spreadsheet to make sure that we do not have that mistake again. So here in the spreadsheet I added an extra line with the cayenne pepper, and I dragged my formula again to make sure that each of the lines corresponds to the correct ID. Finally, for our first dataset, we're gonna input the number of bags we're gonna be opening. And that is 58. Then we want our combined dataset to check how many we have over there. Alright, so that's the proper job. Now it's gonna be time to open our bags, but while we want to open our bags, there is a very important step we need to take prior. And that step is gathering the data using the tool. Because it's, in the case of a small bag like this, it's not too hard to count the items individually. But in the case of bags that have a lot of different items that can drop, it is so much harder to work with and ensure that you have all of the data readily available. You don't want to count it by hand. So we're gonna be doing that, but before that, I was teasing earlier about an extra step in the spreadsheet. We're gonna try and make it look beautiful right now before we go onward with opening our bags. And first go to Firefox or whichever web browser you're using. You can use either the Data Wars 2 website, same as the API we're using, which is why I like it and why I like doing things like this, or you can go to Guild Wars 2 Efficiency, go to Account, Farming, and enable the farming tracker. This is gonna enable you to look at your account and see the changes in whatever you do. That's gonna help you out with data gathering. So I'm gonna do it on Data Wars 2. You go to 2CSV, you do the farming tracker. It's gonna start loading your API key that you previously put on the website. So in my case, very easily, I have two accounts. I'm gonna go for the Narutos one. I'm gonna uncheck everything, pretty much. And now I'm gonna recheck what's important for me. So I want the inventory of my main character. I'm gonna want eventually to have my material storage, my wallet, and my bank, just in case. So this should be good enough. We're gonna start it, and once we see that it has fully loaded, then off we go. Alright, so this is gonna pull the API every 15 minutes or so. So you have some free time to make your spreadsheet look beautiful, and then we're gonna open our containers. So back to our spreadsheet. What we're gonna want to do right now is make it look just a little bit better. So the first column we will reduce the size of. Then we're gonna start adding some lines, grid lines around our stuff. Now that we're back in the game, we're gonna be opening our 58 superior ingredients pouches, and we are gonna as well not forget to put the difference between common and uncommon, because that's gonna be important for later. Once again, the bag is not affected by Magic Find, otherwise it would be stated on the bag, so we're just gonna open every single one of them. And it appears the bag is actually bugged and the wiki was right, we did get some raspberries. That's very interesting. Alright, so time for us to go back to the spreadsheet. So as we're back right now to the spreadsheet, we're gonna take the cayenne pepper butternut squash and the lemongrass, and we're going to change the color of that. So these are the uncommon ones, and usually uncommons I would mark in deep blue. Then all of the other ones I'm going to mark as common, and common is gray. So the difference isn't huge in terms of colors over there, but it is good enough that if you zoom in a little bit, you can see things just fine. So we can count by hand, or we can use the tools that we were using prior, and that's exactly what I think we're going to be doing. So we're going to wait for it to load, and we're going to do some other making the sheet beautiful stuff. So there we're going to add a separation over here, and we're going to start putting in the formulas. So the way it works for the combine thing is we're going to do exactly the same as the sum above. So we're going to take it, and we're going to paste it, formula. So paste special is done with Ctrl-Alt-V, and if you paste the formula, it's going to keep the formatting you did, and it's just going to add the combined values, just like that. For regular numbers like these, I like to use this thing in Excel, the comma style format with 1000 separator, and then remove the commas at the top. So I think that this is a pretty good looking formatting, because you know when it's 0, because you're just going to have that dash over there. The drop rates, we want that to be percentile based, and for the value we're going to use the conditional format we've made earlier, which is stored right around there. So we're going to take all of our lines, we're going to do the conditional formatting. Perfect. Now what I think we should do is we should have on the value part, we should probably, yeah, right there we're gonna add some other boxes. Look, just like that. And we are gonna put this one in our conditional formatting. We're gonna put this one in the 1000 separator style. So right there, our spreadsheet is looking kinda good, not gonna lie. This is already a very good looking data gathering spreadsheet, and the only thing that we're now waiting for is our actual data. So it appears that the website has already gotten all of the information, so we have the change in our stuff, minus 58 superior pouches, and we got all of the items listed, no problem. So now what we're going to want to do is to download the CSV. So here it downloads a file that can be opened in Excel that has a timestamp and your character name. So we're going to go to the download folder, we're going to open it, and right there we're going to need to work with it a little bit because this doesn't look too exploitable, right? So you go into data, text to column, you have a delimited width, and the delimiter is a comma, because it's a comma separated value file. And now, as you can see, it made some very nice column. So we're gonna finish. We have our ID, and we have the total amount dropped. So that is gonna be very good for us, because we can make a formula with a VLOOKUP, just like we did earlier. We look for our ID, and it's going to be the 6th column. Never forget to put in the false part. Now we're going to put the formula all the way down. We have all of our drops listed right there. Now, if you want to make sure that you can delete your drop file safely, you will want to paste these as values. I know it is not perfect to do so, but it's going to make your file a little bit lighter, because less formulas, and it's going to break the link with the drop file that we just downloaded, meaning you can safely erase it from your computer without losing the data. Okay, and now we're going to do a sum of these. And that seems quite good. So now what we're going to want to do is check the value of the stuff we got. The first step is naturally getting the drop rates. For the drop rate, you want to take the combined drops and divide it by your combined sample size. So you've seen me use some dollars before and after cells since the start of the video. This is done by pressing the F4 key on your keyboard, and what it does is it locks a cell in place. So here, for example, I'm looking at G1, the top cell, and if I press F4 once, it gets double dollars. So dollar locks either the column here, G, or the line, 1, or both. So here everything is locked. This means that I can take this and go all the way down with my formula without it losing the divisor that we have over there. You know, it's still going for $1, whereas the other ones are going down in the list. So right here we have our drop rates. We can add another value after the comma to see where the differences are, but this is already starting to look interesting. So now we're gonna do drop rates times price to determine what makes up the value of our bag. It appears that the average value of a bag is 1 silver 28 copper. This is already looking rather interesting. By the way, if we want to make it look a little bit more visually appealing, we can change our conditional formatting. See right there, we're gonna add spaces. This is much easier to read already. So this doesn't look too bad, right? We now have a pretty good idea of where the value comes from in our bags. It mostly comes from the cayenne pepper and the tarragon leaves. So what you can see right there is that the cayenne pepper has a rather high value, a rather middling drop rate, whereas the tarragon leaves have a higher value as well and a higher drop rate, which means that they both make up the most of the price of these. So the raspberry is something that wasn't shown in the preview on the Guild Wars 2 video game, which is why you always need to have a look at the wiki to try it out, to get the data, and to make sure that you don't miss out on something that is otherwise contained in a bag. I think that this is a very good data gathering spreadsheet. It's very basic, but it has everything that you need. If you are at some point doing a lot of sample collection like this, you're gonna be able to make much more gold. Let me explain why. If at some point you see that an item is going up in price on the trading post, if you're following it with your spreadsheets, tracking it or something, you are going to be able to know where it is located in which bags and which drop rate you have. So for instance, if at some point cayenne pepper is going, I don't know, to 3 or 4 silver because a new recipe comes out that uses it and it's very good, then you will probably want to get a lot of cayenne pepper to make gold. Of course, this specific bag that we're researching isn't available on the trading post or cannot be farmed. It's something you get randomly from the Black Lion gathering thing. So you're not going to be able to target buy these bags, but there are some other bags which contain cayenne pepper and which you can buy. So this is exactly what's important to realize here. Once you need an item, if you know where you can get it from, you'll probably have an edge when it comes to better pricing. With this said and done, I hope that you found this video interesting, and if you are interested in this specific spreadsheet, it is already available on the Patreon OneDrive folder. Now, I'm gonna wish every single one of you a happy trading and to get rich.